and welcome to the 5th episode of Pacific Indians Chatter. I am your host, Cody Kelly, along with my co-host, Scott Brown, and our new student correspondent sitting in with us today, Charlie Meyer. Coach, how does it feel to be in here this morning?
Busy week, crazy week of sports. We got a lot to talk about, and exciting week for Indian sports.
It's a busy week of sports, and we got a great interview on the backside with Coach Kappeler joining us from the speech team.
Yeah, people are going to love that one.
We'll jump out to the Riverbend Roundup. We're still kind of where we were last week. You know, first game for volleyball is coming up in 2 weeks. Middle school track will be starting in March. That's really it for out of Riverbend for right now.
All quiet on the Riverbend front.
So we head up to 425 Indian Warpath Drive. For the girls basketball, who played 2 games this week, they traveled to Owensville up Highway 50. JV played 2 quarters. It was a tough game. The Indians lost both of those, I believe. And that's really about it from the Owensville game.
Yeah, they've been playing quite a few of these 2-quarter games, and I guess it's given them a little action.
Yeah, and the varsity side said it was a tough night for the Indians. Then they got back on Thursday night for the court-warming game against the Sullivan Eagles at the reservation. The JV girls won a shortened contest, another 2-quarter game, 9-7. I believe Sullivan was just banged up and had some illness too, and they played 4 straight, so they had to take a little rest and only play 2 quarters. The varsity, on the other hand, though, they played a tough game against the Lady Eagles. They dropped it 34-31. The Indians had the ball with 3 seconds left, could not muster up a shot. Coach Missy and her girls really fought hard because it was one of those games that it was just a little sloppy. The officials had a lot of calls, and when you watch our team play, we're big on the press. So we do foul, and if they're going to call the hand checks a lot, we're going to get in trouble. And that's kind of what happened to us that night. Had to come out of the press. So it hurt us there.
Couple double-doubles that night?
Yeah, Molly Pritchard had a double-double, and Lexi Clark had a double-double.
Well, the boys had a busy week as well. Tuesday night, they traveled up to Owensville for a triple header. The freshman boys ended up taking a loss 43-39. They were up 7 at halftime. They gave up a 31-point second half, which Coach King wasn't really very happy with. Blake Bucher had 14. Bryce Brick pumped in 11 in the freshman game. The JV boys got a big conference win, 39-30. Ryan Bruns had 15. The press was very effective in the second half, and the JV Indians cruised to a win in Owensville. The varsity had the thrilling game of the night, a double OT conference win, 46-43 at Owensville. Jack Meyer was the leading scorer with 10. Drex Blackburn had 9. Matt Rinke with 9. And Xavier Cox came off the bench in the fourth quarter, provided a big momentum shift into both of the overtimes. And the Indians took a good win. Anytime you can win in the FRC, it's a good win. And when it gets to January and February, you've got some physical, very close battles and very little room for error in the Four Rivers.
And don't think some of our kids wanted to get that win with Coach John Van Leer on the bench for Owensville. It's a little special when you get to play against the guy that kind of taught them the game while growing up.
Extra special.
Then on Wednesday night, the boys played a snow makeup game against St. James that I was here for. The freshmen started out the night with the game against the Blue Knights, a homeschool team. They lost 49-42. The Knights were really big and athletic. Brick had 8 points and 7 rebounds for the Indians. On the JV side, they lost an early lead to St. James in overtime. Joey Gable had 12 points. Lost some defensive focus late, according to Coach Hart Hillhouse. On the varsity side, they lost a real tough one, 61-60. Quinn Blackburn had 16, Matt Rinke had 17, and Jack Meyer had 11. Tough sequence. There was a foul called with 3 seconds left on the clock. St. James split the free throws. Coach Bradfish called timeout. We ran a little play, got Jack Meyer open for a pretty decent look with 2 seconds on the clock from half court. Shot just off the side of the backboard. So I'm not going to say anything about officials, but I did talk to one official familiar with the game, watching on our YouTube page, Pacific Indians Athletics, and he sure said it looked like it was probably a foul, but it's a tough call to make with 3 seconds left to decide the ball game.
Yeah, I reran the video, and late in the game, there's a philosophy that the kids kind of should decide the game, and I wouldn't even have called it a foul. He went straight up, and we did let him get down the lane deep, and
yeah, he drove right in.
He got too close to the basket, and that's a tough loss. And I know the kids were emotional, so were the coaches taking that loss. But last night, the court warming game, the boys brought in the Sullivan Eagles, and the JV boys had another tight contest, lost in overtime to the Eagles. Had a great look at the end from 3 to win it, back rim. And they lost in overtime, another close game. The varsity game, very, very physical. The Sullivan Eagles came in and got out of their matchup zone and played aggressive man, very physical man. You could tell they were trying to be dominant in that aspect of the game. Logan Bonds led the scoring with 9 and had a really good first half to kind of keep us in things. Quinn Blackburn had 8 points, and I'm sure he had his typical double-digit rebounds. And another game that came down to the end where a great play drawn up on the sideline, backdoor Jack Meyer layup went in, and the crowd went crazy. And of course, the whistle blows, and we get a charge call, and it kind of deflated the rest of the game. But it well drawn up play, well executed, and a tough break again for the Indians.
Yeah, that was a fun game last night, though, with the biggest crowd I've seen in a couple of years.
Student section was great.
Rocking. The parents were into it. It was pretty intense.
For sure. We just got notice too. The Indians been selected the 8th seed in districts at Webster. The 26th of February, they'll play at 11 o'clock in the morning against Lutheran South, a team they've already beat once this year.
Yeah, I believe they're playing that early because I think the girls' district starts that day, so I'm assuming we'll probably have a boys' game at 11, the playing game, and then the first round of the whole girls' tournament will probably be after that, which our girls will be in as well because we were in that same district at Webster.
That's possible. And Webster does have 2 gyms. I don't know if they're going to use both of them or just use their main gym, but it's going to be a busy week of basketball.
That was some breaking news for us. I've got my phone over here still on as you hear it going off right now, trying to see if I get a text message from Coach Missy about the girls' seeding before we are done. As of right now, they have not gotten their seed yet.
Okay. Jumping back into the high school, the speech team led by Coach Kappeler continues to dominate. They had a conference win at Herman. And in the 32 competition rooms during the speech contest and drama and poetry contest, the Indians won 20 of the 32 rooms. And the 6 other schools there combined to win the other 12 rooms. If that tells you what kind of dominance that we're seeing on this from the speech team. Leading scorers were Cadence Schecker, Madison Lewis, and Drew Raymer, who each had 3 points on the night for our speech team. They travel over the weekend to Osage High School at the lake in a big 15-team tournament, and I bet we still will see some good results. FRC competition wraps up next Thursday, and the Indians are heavy favorites to repeat again for another conference title.
Yeah, you'll hear when we get in the interview kind of an understanding of how these speech meets work. Coach Kappeler kind of breaks it down. And also, you'll understand why we are heavy favorites in the conference, too, once you hear from him.
Yeah, for sure.
On the wrestling side of things, before I jump into the biggest news of the week, I have a text message from Coach Knott from last night at Districts from the boys' side of things. They're currently sitting in 3rd place. Last night, he said they wrestled great. Everyone won the match they needed to in order to set them up today for a big day. Still a lot of work left, according to Coach Knott. Tim Link, Ethan Flaherty, Warren Fiedler, Dom Calvin, Blake McKay, and Nathaniel Naff are all in the semis. They're 1 win away from state berth. Everyone else is still alive, too, so there's still a chance for other people to come through the backside of it.
Yeah, there's that depth we talked about with the wrestling program. They're built for this weekend.
So it could be a good day. Hopefully we'll hear something from that a little later today. But on the other side of things, the girls' district finished up on Monday this week. Zoe Fisher is going to state. She is our first female wrestler to qualify for state. Congratulations to her. The coachable sophomore took 4th in her weight class. There are 51 teams in our district and only 1 class of girls wrestling in just 4 districts. So it's super hard to qualify. There's just class 1. There's no class 2, 3, none of that yet. So it's basically...
Yeah, it's very much an accomplishment to make the girls' state tournament in wrestling.
So like I said, the boys are down at Farmington. We may have Zoe Fisher's name brought back up here in a little bit whenever we get to everyone's favorite segment, Performance of the Week. Before we wrap that, dance team, I did talk to Coach Barnes last night at the court-warming game. They are still prepping for their state video, which is due February 18th, so that's going to be soon. They are hoping to go to state. The video is a backup just in case.
Yeah.
So they're getting that prepared, and then hopefully our girls will be able to get to go on that trip to state and bring home some hardware.
Yeah, busy week in Indian athletics.
It was a very busy week. We had something every night of the week. So which that also gives us a lot of options to choose from for our favorite segment. And it's time for our favorite segment here on the show. Performance of the week. You want to start us off or you want me to go first?
I'll let you take the no-brainer for the week.
All right, my performance of the week is Zoe Fisher. Once again, she is the first to qualify for state for wrestling on the girls' side of things. She's 23-10 on the year. She broke the single season record for wins, match points, team points, falls, takedowns. And my favorite thing as a coach that I've heard from several coaches is coachable. I love to hear that out of anybody that willing to listen, willing to learn. So she's only a sophomore. We're going to have her back for a couple more years. Maybe she'll make a little bit of a run this year at state. Now I'll throw it over to you.
I've got a few choices that I could pick for my performance of the week, but I'm going to go with junior Matt Rinke. He's our do-it-all junior from the basketball team, and he's also an important member of our baseball team as well. He had a good week this week, a big game versus St. James Wednesday night. He was the leading scorer with 17 while helping guard the other team's best player. He pumped in 9 versus Owensville. And last night in the physical game versus Sullivan, he unfortunately had an injury in the second half, and we missed him quite a bit. But this kid, perfect example of a student athlete. Great in the classroom, one of the best natural leaders I've seen in years. He helps run the tribe. He was a big member of the girls' basketball fan base the other night and got some excitement back in the gym.
Yeah, he was the driving force, one of the driving forces for the Ice Bucket Challenge for Coach Missy, which she had to do yesterday. It's on our YouTube page, Pacific Indians Athletics, if you want to see her get doused with ice cold water.
It was enjoyable. I enjoyed that for sure. But Mr. Rinke, you can't say enough about a kid like this. He'd sweep the floor for you. He would put his tables, lunches away at lunch. I mean,
Our student correspondent said he literally takes out the trash if it's left on the table at lunch.
He's that kind of kid. And when you talk about kids like this, that is why I got into the profession. They make our job so rewarding. He has a great family, a great background. He's a great leader for Coach Bradfish. His teammates love him. We had to recognize him, and our guy, quick recovery for Matt Rinke, hopefully.
Yeah. And then I'll throw our honorable mention in, too, from Thursday night's game. Just a quick little story. Lexi Clark for the Indians, her shoelace snapped, and we were going to have to possibly call a second timeout just to try to get her a lace so she could stay in the game. And right there on the spot was our athletic trainer, Sarah. She jumped right out there and taped that shoe on tight as possible, and Lexi didn't miss a minute of that game. It was right when it was a 2-point ball game, too. You can't lose your starting guard in that spot.
Sarah's fantastic. She's at all of our home games, lots of the road games, puts in a lot of time. She deserves a shout-out.
Yeah, I mean, she's up here today for basketball practice, so she puts in a lot of work. All right, and that's going to end it for Pacific Indians Chatter portion, but don't go anywhere because we got a very, very good interview coming up next. I'll be joined in studio with Coach Ed Kappeler. And we're back. And I am also joined for the interview today with Coach Brown. A little different. We're going to have a little two-person interview going on here.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes. I'm excited to be here to talk to Mr. Kappeler.
Yep, today in studio we have Mr. Ed Kappeler, or should I say Coach Kappeler. He came to the district in 1997. Speech and drama. He took over that program in 2002-2003 year. 20 years as a head coach. I believe they haven't lost a conference match since 2007. I'll let him speak on that. And district champs in 2020 and 2021. So, Mr. Kappeler, thank you for joining us.
Good to be here. And Scott, did you ever think that back in 1997, when you and I were working together at Merrimack Valley Middle School, we'd be sitting around doing something called a podcast and talking about speech? Did you ever think that was going to happen?
No, Mr. Kappeler, Ed, I never thought that would happen. I can remember when we kind of got to know each other, and we had a similar path, and you're in English, and I eventually moved over to PE and have done a lot of coaching, but you've done a lot of coaching too. So how did you get here to Merrimack Valley R3? That's my first question.
Well, I was born in Western Pennsylvania, went to high school in Western Pennsylvania, Seneca Valley High School. I got my first teaching job late in my career. I was in my 30s when I got my first teaching job. And I was unable to get a job in Pennsylvania. I had to move to Maryland, and I was working for the Baltimore County Public Schools in Maryland when my wife's family had an emergency. Her sister lived out here in Baldwin, and my wife was flying back and forth from Baltimore to St. Louis to help out. And when it became evident this was going to be long term, my wife, who really did not like Baltimore anyway, said, "Do you think you could find a teaching job in Missouri so that I can be close to my sister?" And so we got a map out, because in those days there was no internet. You had to use a physical map. And we found Baldwin, and we drew a circle, a radius of about 30 miles around Baldwin. I applied to every school district in that 30-mile radius. Merrimack Valley called, and here I am.
Well, their loss was our gain.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
It's a great hire for us with, I mean, all the things you've done with the speech team. Before I get into that, I've always remembered when I was in school, the Pirates stuff and the Steelers stuff throughout your room. And as we record, he's wearing a Steelers sweatshirt. So, and I mean, I guess we've kind of figured out why he's a Steelers fan, is he's from that area. But that was just my thing I always remembered is, man, I feel bad for Mr. Kappeler. He's a Pirates fan.
Yeah, we've talked baseball several times, and are you upset with Big Ben?
It was time to go. After that elbow injury in 2019, he's not been the same quarterback. Yeah. So I almost wore the Big Ben jersey today, and I decided to pull back a little bit and just go with the Steelers sweatshirt.
So now jumping into your speech team program, what do you think has made it so successful? We kind of read some of the accolades. This team has been just unreal for as long as I can remember.
It's the kids and their ability and their willingness to put in the work that they need to do to be successful. I've really been very, very lucky to have a lot of talented kids and good kids. And, a lot of people think that I must have some kind of special training or some kind of special talent in this. I was talking to Coach Bradfish earlier today, and I told him, this is all a mistake. I don't have any special training in this. I just got into it, and I've been learning as I went. But I've just been very, very fortunate to have a lot of kids who have the talent and who want to do the work to be good. Their willingness to be good is what has made the program what it is. And that just feeds off of itself, because the kids who are coming in see the success the previous kids are having, and they say, I want that for me too. And I'm sure it works the same way in sports. There are good kids, good talented kids, and the younger kids see that and they want to emulate that.
Now, you brought the kids down to perform at the middle school or Riverbend now for our 7th and 8th grade. We've had you down, and it's outstanding. They do a tremendous job. Now, when our kids get up there, do you feel like you have to actively recruit those freshmen when they come to school?
The performances at Riverbend have really helped the program, because a lot of those kids see what we're doing, and they say, hey, that looks cool, that looks interesting, I'd like to do that too. As far as recruiting goes, it's mostly word of mouth. Other speech team people talk to kids, and kids say, that sounds interesting, I'd like to do that. Since I teach all freshmen here at the high school, I can also do a lot of recruiting. And if I see a kid who I think would be good at it, I talk to them. And so we don't have the feeder programs that the sports do. So it's more keeping an eye out on things and talking to your kids to see if they know anybody. This year I've had multiple freshmen approach me and say, hey, I know so-and-so from the team, and I'd like to be on it. So it's a word-of-mouth recruitment is how we do it generally.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's been doing a great job with everything that we've been doing here at Pacific. Speaking of that, though, I did go to Pacific. I was here while you were a teacher. I had, speaking of, before I get to this old school English teacher, I had Mr. McLean my freshman year, his last year before he retired. And the kids still say you're an old school English teacher. What do they mean? I know you were District Teacher of the Year just a few years ago, so...
Well, when Scott sent me the email yesterday to let me know what we were going to talk about, that was the question that I was the most concerned about, because I really don't know what an old school teacher is. And so I got the email around noon, I think. And so then I asked my 5th and my 6th period classes, I said, okay, here's the question they're going to ask me tomorrow. What makes me old school? And what I got from talking to my 5th and 6th period classes and some of my older kids too, who visited me at lunch, is that they say what makes me old school is that a lot of the younger teachers, technology is driving the instruction, and then the teachers are there to facilitate and to help. And they say, with me, I'm the one who's providing the instruction. So not only am I facilitating, but I'm also providing much of the instruction. And they say that that's not what they see in a lot of their classes, where teachers are more like facilitators, which is what we're taught to do now. No more sage on the stage. I guess I'm still the sage on the stage, and that's what makes me old school. But one of the kids, I said to one of the kids, so which do you like better? Which one is better? And one boy said, well, one's not better than the other. It's just a preference. And he said, I know students who prefer to get their instruction from a person. And he said, I know other students who prefer to get their knowledge from a device. And he said, so it's really a personal preference. Another student said that one of the reasons they like my class is I'm so excited about everything. And I guess that's something that doesn't come through with a device. That ability to get kids excited about whatever it is you're studying. I guess that makes me old school.
Well, that's awesome. I've got a lot of respect for you, and I know a lot of people in the district have a lot of respect, but just to bring back the pencil instead of the Chromebook, I mean, the kids talk about that. They're like, my parents learned a certain way, and you can see a little bit of that in Mr. Kappeler's room, and he doesn't rely just on the devices, and then that's the kind of answer that I get from him too. But that's just great. That makes you unique in that. Now, transitioning a little bit back to the speech and debate, kind of explain to us and the audience, when you guys go to a competition, whether it's conference or a district, which is obviously a little bit more, we get more teams and more kids, how does the competition work specifically for speech and debate?
I was talking to Coach Brad Fish about this morning also, and he was kind of wondering how does speech work also. And I guess the sport that we align most closely to would be wrestling, where in wrestling you've got different weight classes competing against each other, and then the more of those that you win, or the higher that you place, the more points that you get as a team. In speech and debate, we have different events, different categories. And so even though it's an individual competition, you've got all the people competing in dramatic interpretation competing against each other, just like you have all the students in one weight class competing against each other in wrestling. And the more students that you can get to finish first, second, or third, then the more points that you're going to score as a team.
Are the events timed, and there's judges in the room as well?
Yep, there are judges for each event. There are time limits for each event. 10 minutes is the top. There are a couple of 8-minute events and a 5-minute event. But a typical Saturday tournament, we would get there at maybe 8 o'clock in the morning, and then all the kids would compete in round 1 that would run from 8:30 to 10 o'clock. And then round 2 would maybe run from 10:30 to noon. And then round 3, maybe 1:30 to 3. You add up the scores that the kids get. And like golf, the lower score is the best. So if you finish first, you get a 1. And so after 3 rounds, the perfect score would be a 3. And so then typically it's the 6 lowest scores at the tournament in each event advance to the final round, and that's where you have your final placement.
That's interesting. I know a lot of people don't know much about what goes on, and these are usually on the weekends or during a weeknight in the evening. I've seen you guys up here.
the schools that do debate and speech tournaments, typically that's a Friday night, Saturday tournament. We tend to only go to speech tournaments. I don't compete in debate. I've never competed in debate at Pacific. And so we always look for the Saturday only tournaments.
Okay.
And those are the ones that I prefer and the kids prefer also.
Do you have a special memory in the last 15 years of just dominating the speech tournaments around here? Is there any one tournament or one moment that sticks out that you can recall?
In 2013, we took a one-act play to the state tournament, and we were in the preliminary rounds. In the prelim rounds, you're trying to finish either first or second so that you're in the final four for the state championship. It was a play called the Triangle Factory Fire Project, and I was standing in the wings as the play ran down, and the play ended, and the applause began. And the applause grew louder, and the applause never stopped. And the kids always call that the day of the never-ending applause. And what made that special was the people in the audience were all your competition. It was all the kids that were going to compete in one-act play later on.
Wow.
And for them to recognize that what they had seen was special and to honor the kids the way they did, that's probably my number one memory from speech. As it turned out that year, we finished second in the state. The only team that beat us was Raymore Peculiar, who, in my opinion, is the top program in the state. In the final round against Raymore Peculiar, they got 2 first place votes, and we got 1 first place vote. So that's how we finished second. Just one vote away from a state championship in one-act play.
That's good stuff.
Well, as we wrap up, though, I just want to hear this stat out loud again. Conference champion from 2007 to currently, right? Without
the conference championships began in 2008, and we have won all of them through 2021. Hopefully, if we can do it this year, that'll be 15 years in a row.
That's great.
That means there's nobody else on that plaque for conference titles but Pacific.
You got to love it. Hey, Ed, how many more years do you got? Are you going to keep going for a while? I know we'd love to keep you in the district.
You know, I sent a letter to Mr. Savage and Mr. Herbst telling them that I had 3 more years left. I was going to do it 3 more years. I think I sent that 4 years ago, and I'm still going. I had a very interesting discussion with Mr. Soakland a couple months ago, and we were talking about how many more years do we have left. And Matt said to me, you know what? He says, I'm getting paid to do what I do as a hobby anyway. I think that's a pretty good gig. So I'm still enjoying it. I've got myself pegged for retirement in 3 years, but you know, when you get to this point, it could happen anytime. So 3 years is my goal, and I'm hoping I can do it. I still enjoy it, so there's no reason to stop.
Well, you chose the right profession, and I can speak for a lot of people in the district, kids and fellow teachers and parents, that we've loved having you here, and you've made our district a better place, and I think a lot of people remember that. I
appreciate that, Scott, and certainly it's been the highlight of my career, and I've thoroughly enjoyed my time with the speech team and with Merrimack Valley.
We talked to Jesse about big shoes to fill, taking over the wrestling program. Oh boy,
gosh.
taking over the speech team, that is going to be massive. I'd like to thank Mr. Kappeler, the old school teacher, I'll just say great teacher, for joining us today on our show. Until next week, everybody, keep up the chatter.